Chapter 5, Getting It. Two key people. The first person is Jonathan Edwards. Jonathan Edwards was born into a Puritan community on October 5th, 1703 in Connecticut. Edwards was a preacher who taught with passion and emotionally moved many people. He spoke about the eternal fire and condemnation unbelievers would encounter after they passed away. His preaching began in 1734, and his methods of teaching were controversial by even his friends. His most famous influence was in a sermon when he was explaining a metaphor of how a person is holding a spider by its thread over a fire and can let go at any given time. It was a metaphor of how God can do the same for people. He just has to let go. Another one of his famous lines spoken is, "The road to hell is paved with the skulls of unbaptized children." The next person is Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was born on January 17, 1706 in Boston, Massachusetts. He became a well-known writer for his pamphlets and works. One such piece, Poor Richard's Almanac, became successful and was published near the end of 1732. He also became an entrepreneur with multiple inventions. One of these inventions was the Franklin stove, which provided heat while requiring less fuel. His main contributions to society were in the scientific inventions he created. He was influenced by previous scientific discoveries about electricity and created a well-known kite and key experiment, determining whether lightning was electricity, and using this he created the lightning rod. He created also many new electrical terms used today, such as battery and charger. His influence on society greatened when Franklin invented glasses for reading and seeing distances. He created the first rocking chair, as well as designing the first penny. The major event is the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening first began when people realized how evil the world was around them. It could have been influenced by the Salem witch trials in the North that, when ended, left a sense of emptiness and guilt for what the people did. The first man to talk about it out loud was Jonathan Edwards, who we previously mentioned was a preacher that preached in a very passionate way. He started preaching in 1734 and talked about how non-believers would die in hell. He gave many metaphors relating the people's sin to how God felt and what he can do. Next came George Whitefield, who started his preaching 4 years later. He preached to move others emotionally and even brought Jonathan Edwards to tears. Though very moving, some were very doubtful of these new methods of preaching. Most of these skeptics were Orthodox clergymen, but the Great Awakening still carried on, nonetheless, and created large religious densities in population that were and can be partially still seen today in areas such as Princeton, Brown, Rutgers, and Dartmouth University and colleges. This religious movement was the first of its kind in America. The societal trend, the founding and value of schools and colleges. In the New England area, schooling and education was highly valued. In this way, around the times just before the Revolutionary War, were the beginnings of schools. One highly valued education was the clergyman, which is a study, like a way somebody can study and earn their degree in. Primary and secondary schools were founded in areas other than New England. Unfortunately, only wealthy families can attend and participate in education, whereas poorer families cannot because they cannot afford it. Most schools educated their students in religion and classical languages. Discipline was harsh in the schools. College was highly valued in New England, with its value sometimes being more than learning the alphabet. Eventually, a curriculum was made to teach students more useful knowledge. One such school founded around that time that influences the present world was the University of Pennsylvania, which was founded by Benjamin Franklin. Economic trends. In this time period, some economic trends that also occur today but were founded in America were different forms of entertainment. Work used to only pertain to farm work or other labor-intensive work, which usually occupied most of a person's life. But amusements such as parties and socializing became popular with group-relating forms of work. In the southern colonies, other forms of entertainment consisted of card playing, horse racing, chicken fighting, and fox hunting. Lotteries were approved in the entirety of the colonies, and even the clergymen approved its existence and usage due to money also being put in the churches and educational buildings. Stage plays were also popular and generated money through acting. In this way, all the colonies came together as a unified people, but each with unique characteristics pertaining to their own colony or region. Finally, I have the primary source. On the right-hand side, you can see the primary source itself. This document does not have a known artist. It is a painting of George Whitefield, the fired-up and passionate preacher who came right after Jonathan Edwards. It is important because during that time period, many people became believers in the Christian church, which was a time called the Great Awakening. This picture takes place in a broader time period because all this happened just before the Revolutionary War. Many people were emotionally moved, and these set of new ideas could have planted the seeds necessary for people to unify together against England. As you can see in the picture, George Whitefield's hands are raised as he's preaching to the people, and right above it is the link to cite the source.